morning and welcome to First Parish in Concord. For those of you who have chosen to come to church here in the sanctuary, welcome. And for everybody online, welcome as well. We are glad that we have all gathered here as a congregation for church this morning. I'm Reverend Howard Dana, and I want to welcome you, whether it's your first time with us or if you've been sitting in these pews or watching online for years. We want to welcome you to our service today. Teresa is our Zoom host today. Thank you, Teresa. She'll take care of things in the chat. She'll be pasting some things into the chat for you. So just chat with her if you're having any problems or any questions there online. We try to be very accessible here at First Parish in Concord. There are listening assisted devices in the back if you'd like them. They work very well here in person. We also have an elevator through these doors here that goes to all levels, and our bathrooms have non-gender specific bathrooms, and they are all accessible. We are glad that you are here this morning. We are grateful for all of you for taking care of this community, and to keep us safer, masks must be worn in the building. As you'll notice, we've removed the tape from the pews. This is just a step in opening up a little bit more. It's a big enough room that we can social distance, so feel free to spread yourselves out as you're comfortable here in the sanctuary. Our worship leaders, choir, and teachers are all vaccinated. We strongly encourage vaccination for everyone who is medically able. The choir will sing one anthem, and the congregation will sing the closing hymn. We are keeping the windows open to improve ventilation, and we'd like to remind you to stay at home if you're not feeling well, even if you think that it's just a cold. If you or a family member has tested positive for COVID, please call or email a member of the church staff. And if there's been a COVID exposure here at church, we will let the congregation know while keeping the person's identity confidential. Together, we covenant to reduce the risk of COVID by each doing our part. Our call to worship this morning are the words from the ancient prophet Isaiah. He says, "The wilderness and dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom. Like the crocus, it shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing." Let us worship together.
Good morning. In our Unitarian Universalist faith, we light a chalice to consecrate our space at the beginning of each worship. When we come together, we honor who we are together in community. We honor the people who have brought us here and the way that we move forward. And so today, we light our chalice for the ways in which our living tradition is a tradition, the ways in which we uphold our traditions, and also living, the ways in which we continue to change and grow as the moment asks of us. I invite you to join in our chalice lighting response. The words are in your order of service and on your screen. O flame of our faith, open our hearts and fill our bodies and souls with persistent strength. Enliven our spirits and engage us deeply in this life of ours, this sacred, essential moment now. As we continue through our pledge campaign, we have May Reeves today offering a testimonial. May has a poem that she is especially sharing with us. You can come on up, yeah. And that is in your order of service. It's an insert, so you can read along. The words will also be on your screen, or probably in the chat, so that you can still see May's face. Thanks, May. Come on. Up to...
Hello, my name is May Reeves, and this is a poem I have written titled Where I'm From. Where am I from? From where do I come? What am I made of? A lot or some? All or none? Where did it begin, and when will it be done? What is life, pain or fun, rain or sun? Who am I, and where am I from? I am from Chalice lightings and credo writings and benediction reciting. I am from fighting negative thoughts, confiding in the wisdom I've been taught, the wisdom I have sought after while becoming the woman I ought to be. Who do I want to be? As this church has placed me carefully on my feet, how do I become the best version of me? How do I stay connected throughout COVID-19? How do I remember to breathe and see the light in the dark and hold on tight to my heart? How do I play my part and leave my mark? How do I master the art of staying connected, of staying protected? How has the pandemic affected my community? If COVID is a virus, then love must be immunity. The key to living through trauma communally is remembering that you are still here. You have survived the last 2 years. You have battled your past few fears. Even when we thought the pandemic would disappear, it persisted, but so have we. We have persisted, we have insisted on keeping our families safe. We have remained resistant for our community's sake. Despite the loneliness of distance, we have done our best to stay consistent, and for this we have each other to thank. Every person in the room, every face on Zoom, it's like looking to the sky and seeing the moon, knowing this congregation loves me there and back. So there I sat as this church raised me from the ground up, the praising sound of hymnals, the profound symbols of being you. Sitting in these pews, watching the service from a bird's eye view, the music in my ears as the years pass by, and I feel the never-ending passing of time. Here I am brought back by memories in my mind of seeing a friendly face in a familiar place, walking through these black doors and being embraced, being faced with life's challenges but having a space to walk through it. I knew it would be okay from the first time I heard someone say, "Go out into the world in peace." Every piece of me carefully molded, being enfolded in this community on my search for where I am from and what I am worth. I am from First Parish in Concord, and this is my church. Thank you.
Thank you, May. So well said. I hope that you keep writing poetry your entire life because it's a gift to all of us. Inspired by May, I hope and invite you to pledge if you have not yet, remembering all of the ways that you are connected to this congregation, all of the ways that you have persisted in community through the pandemic, be that the past 2 years or the past week. We are here in it together. You have a pledge card. Is it in your order of service? It is not, but it's available in the back of the sanctuary from the ushers. And you have a link online to be able to pledge. The pledge link is also highlighted in the website and FP Weekly. So we accept your generous pledges however you would like to give them to us. If you increase your pledge from last year, $520 or more, which is $10 a week, you will be entered into the 520 Challenge Raffle. This year, our raffle prize is this beautiful quilt by Elaine Wallace. You can take a look later if you'd like, but I'll just tell you it's got all these great little details and it makes my heart happy. Thank you for the ways in which you sustain our community. It takes a village to raise a congregation. Let's continue to settle in now with our centering music.
Good morning. I invite you to join us for the responsive reading this morning, number 654 in your gray hymnal. And for those on Zoom, it will be on a slide. (654) Impassioned Clay. Deep in ourselves resides the religious impulse.
Out of the passions of our clay it rises.
We have religion when we stop deluding ourselves that we are self-sufficient, self-sustaining, or self-derived.
We have religion when we hold some hope beyond the present, some self-respect beyond our failures.
We have religion when our hearts are capable of leaping up at beauty, when our nerves are edged by some dream in the heart.
We have religion when we have an abiding gratitude for all that we have received.
We have religion when we look upon people with all their failings and still find in them good, when we look beyond people to the grandeur in nature and to the purpose in our own heart.
We have religion when we have done all that we can and then in confidence entrust ourselves to the life that is larger than ourselves.
For our second reading today, I've chosen something from the Jewish tradition. This is from the 19th chapter of Genesis, found in the Torah. When morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Get up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or else you will be consumed in the punishment of this city." But he lingered. So the men seized him and his wife and his 2 daughters by the hand, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and left him outside the city. When they had brought him outside, they said, "Flee for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the hills, or else you will be consumed." And Lot said to them, "Oh no, my lords, your servant has found favor with you, and you have shown me great kindness in saving my life. But I cannot flee to the hills, for fear the disaster will overtake me and I die. Look, that city is near enough to flee to, and it is a little one. Let me escape there. Is it not a little one? And my life will be saved." He said to him, "Very well, I grant you this favor too, and will not overthrow the city of which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I can do nothing until you arrive there." Therefore the city was called Zohar. The sun had risen on the earth when Lot came to Zohar. Then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven, and he overthrew those cities and all of the plain and all of the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. But Lot's wife, behind him, looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Have you ever had a life-changing moment? Most of us have. Something expected or unexpected happens to us, and our lives are changed forever. I remember arriving at Montana State University in September 1986 and moving into a small dorm room with someone I had never met before. Talk about big change. I went from living on my family's small cattle ranch to living in a high-rise party dorm. As I was getting settled in, one of my new neighbors came to my dorm room door and offered me a beer. "Better drink these now before we have some homework to do," he said. I was 18 years old and had tasted beer just a couple of times. Where had I landed, I thought. The big change of that semester proved to be transformative in good and bad ways. I felt the freedom of living on my own. I enjoyed all of the newness around me. But my roommate was a selfish, bratty person. By taking too many classes, I had spread myself too thin academically, and I wasn't doing very well in my classes either. An intro to chemistry seminar with 400 other students left me wondering what I was doing at university. The drinking and partying in the dorm was disruptive. I was homesick. I felt myself becoming unmoored. Failure to thrive described me. As the first and only person in my family to ever go to college, I didn't have a family support system to fall back on either. They didn't understand what I was doing either. If I could not make it on my own that first semester, I didn't know what I would do. One day at the end of finals week that semester, when I had done poorly on more than one exam, a middle-aged woman appeared at my dorm room door. She asked if I was Howard Dana, and I said yes. "Get your things together, please," she said. "You are moving." Imagine my surprise. "I'm from the University Honors Program," the woman said, "and we don't think that this is the best place for you to live if you're going to get an education." Since all the first-year students were required to live on campus, who knew I had a choice in where to live? "Bring your boxes downstairs," she said, "and I will have someone bring them over to Quad D." Quad D was an older, small dorm that only had a dozen people living in it. It had a living room and a kitchen. All the students there were in the honors program, as I was now, I guessed. And life was not perfect at Quad D, but it was better. My grades improved, I made friends, partying was limited to weekends, and I began to thrive. To this day, I do not know how the decision was made to move me, or even how anyone knew I was failing. Montana State University has 10,000 students. But I'm likely here today because that woman came to my dorm room, and I agreed to follow her. An openness to change is necessary to thrive in this world. We know the only constant in life is change. Change is going to happen all the time and everywhere. This is just a fact. We have little control over the changes, but we do have control over our openness to the change. We can control how we react to the change. From small personal changes to large global changes, it is a human's ability to adapt to a change that is important. Adaptation is not resignation. It is not giving up or giving in. Adaptation is moving with the change and trying to affect its course. Adaptation wants to minimize harm and maximize good. It is active and intentional. Over the last few years, we have all experienced the increasing pace of change, writes UUA President Susan Frederick Gray in her column in the fall 2021 edition of the UU World. We witness the exponential impacts of climate disasters, record-breaking heat, multiple 100-year floods and storms, fire seasons unlike those seen in recorded memory. Relatedly, she says, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought enormous changes to our lives and the ways we gather almost instantly. These realities create profound suffering and devastation. They expose the undeniable consequences of ideologies of supremacy and domination that have long fed our systems and exploited lives and the resources of the earth. There are those who argue fundamental change comes slowly, she admits, but slow change is not sufficient. We need a sea change to dismantle the deeply ingrained structures of white supremacy, exploitative capitalism, and patriarchy. We need a sea change, Susan Frederick Gray says, and I agree with her. In the last 2 years, we have seen ample evidence that big change can happen fast. It can happen much faster than we previously thought. It can happen with far fewer casualties than slow change. A sharp turn keeps more people alive, even while it dismays people in power. As a child of the 1980s, I was raised with Ronald Reagan's trickle-down economics. Trickle-down economics was just another way of keeping rich people rich while poor people suffered. 40 years later, we have the largest wealth gap in the United States since the so-called Gilded Age of the late 19th century. Like in our own time, the Gilded Age was marked by wild prosperity for a few at the top and abject poverty, especially for recent immigrants, at the bottom. Part of the reason we are seeing such societal shifts in 2022 is because the U.S. government supplemented millions of people's income through the COVID-19 pandemic. For the first time, millions of Americans were not living hand to mouth. This big change will affect us all for years to come. As Kim Stanley Robinson observed, we are all now stuck in a science fiction novel that we are writing together. And Arundhati Roy has made a similar observation, comparing the COVID-19 pandemic to a portal. We can choose to walk through it, she wrote, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks, and dead ideas. Or we can walk through it lightly, with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. If we are at a portal, and it feels like we are, what does liberal religion have to say to this moment? Will it want to drag the carcasses of its prejudice and hatred, its avarice through with it, or will it choose to walk through lightly? I think it will choose the latter, and I am glad of that. Just as I was told to pack my things and move to Quad D at Montana State University, we are asked to move quickly to a new way of being as a church. I will not be with you for this move, but it is a move you must make. Gone are the days in which First Parish in Concord can be content to sit in the middle of town expecting people to come to it. If you are to thrive as a congregation, you will have to look beyond 20 Lexington Road and venture beyond the town of Concord. Concord does not need this church's help very much, but there are places that do. And we must want to be changed by the people we are encountering. If we go out into the world knowing that we don't have all the answers, we will learn much more than we teach. In her 2020 Ware Lecture addressed to the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly, Naomi Klein put our charge in stark terms. We are living in what has been called the age of consequences. Ours is an economic and social system built on the endless extraction and abuse of the natural world, as well as the endless extraction and abuse of black and brown bodies. Eventually, a system like that is going to blow back on itself, and that is what is happening now. Deadly viruses leap from animals to humans who stole their habitats. Cities are set aflame by untenable levels of injustice and neglect. And our natural world is on fire, too. All our culture's accumulated debts, she says, debts to our fellow humans and the more than human world as well, are coming due at once. Eventually, a system like ours is going to blow back on itself. Because of its resources and location, First Parish in Concord could probably ignore this blowback and survive. But what would be the good of that? How much better to face the blowback squarely and to vow to be of some help. What our congregation is doing right now to help an Afghan family is an example of us getting beyond our walls. What it is doing to help recent immigrants from Central America has gotten it beyond its walls. Its continued commitment to Open Table in Maynard gets it beyond its walls. Its work on restoring democracy extends all over our country. Its 30-year relationship with our partner church in Transylvania has transformed lives here and there. I could go on and on and on. This church knows how to get beyond its walls. All we need is for more of that to happen. Big change can happen fast. In 1 week in March 2020, we went from being a completely in-person church to being a completely online church. But you know what? First Parish never closed. Usually we need someone to show up at our door who says, "Move." And then we need to be ready to trust them and to actually move. I don't know what this congregation will do in the future. That is up to you. I do know it can't afford to just do what it has done in the past. At the end of this phase of the COVID-19 pandemic, and faced with a ministerial transition, big change will happen fast. What you do with that change will determine the course of your future. Trust that you can step through that portal lightly, with little luggage, ready to imagine another world, and ready to fight for it. So be it. Amen. Here's a question to ponder. If you're sitting near folks, just talk to them or scoot a little bit closer. If you're online, you can put your answers into the chat so everyone can see them. Talk for a couple of minutes. What big change do you want to see? What big change do you want to see? We'll ring a gong when it's time to come back.
over the past decade or so, in times of big change, and there have been many, I've had these words of the poet Rainer Maria Rilke under my blotter, on my refrigerator, on my bulletin board, as a reminder. I will read them to you now. Have patience with everything unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers which could not be given to you now because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday, far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. These words have been with me these past 2 years especially, and have, as words do, become a song, which then became a choral arrangement, which we will sing for you now. Love the questions.
I'm
offer and would like to have held by your community? This week has been a really heavy week, I'm sorry to say. Anderson M's mother-in-law, Shirley, died this week, last Sunday morning, after a long battle with cancer. We send Anderson, his wife Cindy, and their family prayers for comfort as they grieve for Shirley. Earlier this week, Abby B. fell. She has fractured vertebrae in her neck. She'll be okay, but she expects healing to take a good while. Abby's being well supported by family. She requests no calls or visits, but welcomes our prayers and good thoughts, and so we offer our prayers for her steady healing. Bill S. is recovering at home after having surgery at Emerson earlier this week. He welcomes phone calls, emails, and visits, and so our hearts are with him and Sherry, both through all those mediums and through the medium of prayer and meditation. Finally, and very sadly, Nancy Cronin had a stroke this week. Happened on Tuesday night, and she is now at Mass General Hospital on hospice. She'll be coming home today for the last couple of days of her life with her family. Nancy's not able to receive calls or visitors, but all of our hearts can be with her. We hold her and her daughter Ellie and son-in-law David, the grandkids, all of the family, in our prayers and hearts. And my heart is also with all of you who have known Nancy and been her friend or colleague in church committee work, in town work, all of the years that she has been here. Who else is on your hearts and minds? I invite you to call their names aloud or type them into the chat or both. And let's join our hearts in spirit of life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Will you pray with me? Spirit of life, Spirit of love that binds us through the generations, through space, holding us together in community. Sometimes our hearts are full of big questions, and sometimes our hearts hold giant sorrows. In this time when so many in our community are grieving or are feeling anticipatory grief, the sadness of goodbye. May our hearts be open. May we be held in our sadness, knowing that goodbye is good work to do, even though it is challenging. In this time of big questions, may we be open to the portals that we are called to move through. May we learn to live into and indeed love the questions, even when the path isn't clear. And also, we know that life is full and big, and so is our world. And so, even as we carry sorrow and even as we carry questions, help us to look around. Help us to notice moments of beauty and love and kindness in our world. Help us to say yes to one another's kindnesses, to bring more gentleness into our lives and our community, to learn to move with the change, to do our best to affect its course in positive ways. This is a prayer for comfort and gentleness, and yes, beauty, and always love. May all who have come in sorrow today find solace. May all who have come in joy find their joy doubled, and may each of us, by our daily living, make our world a better place. Let us abide in this stillness for a moment of silent meditation.
Find a stillness, hold the stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
Our mission engages us to build community, to deepen spiritually, and to work for justice. At this time in our service, we offer a reflection on the ways in which our actions can shape the world. When we act in ways that support and hold beloved community, we are acting socially for the greater good. Sometimes this requires sacrifice. Sometimes it requires courage. Always it requires love. This morning, I'd like to invite Regina Correo to come forward and share with us our social action candle from Greening the Campus.
Good morning. I'm Regina Correo. I'm a member of the Greening the Campus Task Force. We're lighting the social action candle today to celebrate the progress that's been made by the Greening the Campus Task Force. And for those of you who don't know, the Greening the Campus Task Force was charged with implementing the vote, the positive vote that was taken by this congregation to make our campus, this sanctuary, and the other buildings on the campus more sustainable by coming off of fossil fuels and into alignment with our UU values. So the work of the task force has been in collaboration with the trustees, who are the managers of the 4 cottages on the campus, and also with the Right Tavern Task Force, who are working to improve the Right Tavern in anticipation of the 250th anniversary. So what has the Greening the Campus Task Force been up to? Well, to that end, we have had a very successful beginning. The sanctuary has been insulated. I'm not sure if you can appreciate that with windows open, but maybe next year. There's been more energy-efficient lighting installed. By the end of this month, which is in just a few days, the trustees expect that all 4 of the cottages will be insulated. Very importantly, we've hired a consulting firm, LN Consulting, out of Vermont. It's a mechanical engineering firm, and they will make recommendations on the HVAC systems and what we need to add or enhance or delete in order to become more compliant with our goals. They'll also give us advice on UV lighting, which will eradicate germs and provide an additional layer of protection. These notes were made by Peter Lowett, and I hope you all are thankful to me for taking out all the technical terms and just sort of giving it to you as straight as I can. We were also providing measurements of CO2 for the services themselves, so we know how we're doing in that space with all of us breathing together. And with the help of volunteers, we did blower tests of the sanctuary to identify air leaks. 2 or 3 more. We've hired Nishatic architects to work with our engineering consultants. We're commissioning something that's called a commissioning agent, whose task it will be to make sure that the plans that are proposed to us are actually viable and will actually work. And lastly, the consulting firm, LN of Vermont, will make recommendations and develop a cost estimate, and we will come back to this congregation for guidance on how to go forward with the fundraising to implement the rest of this project. For now, we want to thank all of those congregants for the support you've given, both spiritually as well as financially, to get us this far, to get the project started, and we look forward to having more of an update from the Greening the Campus Task Force at the annual meeting. Thank you.
At this time in our service, we accept your generous gifts. We invite you to give generously to our Share the Plate this morning, and your support goes not only to First Parish, but to the March recipient for our Share the Plate, Alternatives for Community Environment. This is your last opportunity to share with them, as this is the last Sunday in March. They are a group that works to build the power of communities of color and low-income communities in Massachusetts to eradicate environmental racism and classism and to create healthy, sustainable communities and achieve environmental justice. Donations can be texted during the service, and 50% of the donations are shared with the organization and with First Parish. We invite you to give generously this morning.
As we come towards the end of our service, as always, I invite you not to leave. We have a lot going on here at First Parish, including today. There are several options for you to stick around or come on in. First, at 12:30, I believe, pretty soon, there's a screening of the film Disclosure, which is hosted by the Diversity Committee. That screening is in advance of tomorrow's discussion, so if you've watched already on your own, you can come tomorrow, and if not, you can come pretty soon, and it'll be over in the chapel. I invite you to check FP Weekly to find out that exact time and any other details. FP Weekly is your weekly newsletter that tells you what is going on. It's got quick links to everything you want to know about. You can subscribe on the website if you haven't yet. Before the film starts, you can stick around for Worship Sharing Circle and Coffee Hour. Worship Sharing Circle is your option if you would like a smaller group to talk about what came up for you from today's service and how it connects with your life. Today, our facilitator is Kel online, and I think it's just online today. So if you're here in church, you can dash home and hop online, or you can use your phone and connect. Link is, as always, in FP Weekly. And how about if anybody from church wants to join that, you all can go ahead and meet up in the Ripley room, and probably one of you will have a device that will work for all of you so that you can still be together here as well as joining online. I know you integrate really well, and Cal will facilitate from online. For coffee hour, coffee is downstairs right below you in the kitchen. Please keep your mask on while you get your coffee, and then come right on outside to the terrace and patio to your left. Outside, you will find some folks who are available to help you learn more about First Parish, answer all your questions, help you get connected. From the Congregational Life Committee at the welcome table today, we have Sarah Ballard, who had led us in one of our prayer songs. And from the Standing Committee, we have C.C. King. There's also a table for the pastoral milestones where you can read everybody's last name and also write cards to folks to whom you wish to send cards.
And now I'd like to invite you all to open your teal hymn book, just briefly, to number 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. You'll see at the bottom that this is attributed to Rose Sanders, a civil rights attorney, education activist, songwriter, and playwright who lives in Selma, Alabama. She was Alabama's first African-American woman judge and has co-founded numerous organizations that work to protect and educate children. In 2003, Rose Sanders changed her name to Faya Rose Touré. She did this, she said, to drop her slave name and take on the name that was her true name. I love that story about this hymn, There's a River Flowing in My Soul, because it tells me about what stays constant in change. And so I invite you to sing it now. I will line out the changes for each verse, so you don't need to look at the words. You can sing aloud and make harmony if you like. So please rise as you are able, and let's sing There's a River Flowing in My Soul. 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 And it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart. And it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind. And it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. Repeat with me. There's a river flowing, there's a river flowing, there's a river flowing, there's a river flowing, there's a river flowing in my
I assure you that big change is possible. It is always scary, and it's also exciting. Know that you and I are adaptive creatures. It's just what we do. Let us step through that portal together, excited to see what is on the other side. Please join in the first parish benediction that is printed in your order of service or on a slide. Go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all beings.